today, Governor Snyder's attorney comes out and says, neglecting a city is not a crime. Nope, this is not The Onion. Governor Snyder's lawyer wrote, in court, said, neglecting a city is not a crime. Attorneys representing Michigan's former governor, Rick Snyder, charged with 2 misdemeanors as part of a years-long investigation into the Flint water crisis, are arguing that their client cannot be charged because, quote, neglecting a city is not a crime, according to a court filing on Monday. Neglecting a city is not a crime, certainly not one with which Governor Snyder has been charged, nor did Governor Snyder have any duties owed specifically to Flint. Nor did Governor Snyder have any duties owed specifically to Flint. Snyder's team also argues that the grand jury indictment was a procedural error because it came from Genesee County and Snyder worked in Lansing in Ingham County. Quote, his alleged crimes were committed, if at all, from that location, not in the city of Flint or anywhere else in Genesee County, Lennon wrote, adding that Snyder's legal team believes charging him from there has to do with reasons that almost certainly have much to do with attempting to tip the scales in their favor, which presumably they're going to ask for a change of venue so the trial can't happen in Genesee County where Flint is. It's, quote, it's clear the prosecution is desperate to keep the case in Genesee County. The state is now asking the court to perform legal and logistical gymnastics to cover for their fatal flaw of obtaining their charges in the wrong county. Snyder will be back in court tomorrow for a pretrial hearing. I don't even know where to start with this. I don't even know where to start with this. So let's start first. Well, first off, let me read, in response to this, Melissa Mays, who I've interviewed many, many times. Here's what Melissa Mays said. She is a Flint resident, one of the top activists in Flint. Day 2,495 in the Flint water crisis. Again, almost 7 years that this city has not had clean drinking water. Apparently making the decisions that led to the poisoning, permanent damage, and deaths of innocent men, women, and children in Flint isn't a crime. I wonder what would happen if I poisoned 100,000 people, but I'm not a rich white man, so pretty firm. So let's go with the first, that the governor didn't owe any specific duty to the city of Flint. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know my map of Michigan. And I'm pretty sure that Flint is located in Michigan. And I'm pretty sure that when you're a governor, your duty is to all of the land within your state. So this whole, I don't know what legal mental gymnastics Snyder's lawyer is trying to use, that he didn't owe a particular duty to Flint. But if you're the governor of the state, if the water source in that city at the time of 100,000 people was switched, then yeah, that's a pretty significant thing. For Flint to switch to the Flint River, the state of Michigan had to approve it. For Flint to join a brand new water pipeline, which was a financial scam, that Flint was put on a brand new water pipeline that was totally unnecessary. If you live in Michigan, you know what I'm talking about, the KWA pipeline. The state of Michigan had to approve that. So this whole, Flint is on a different island and it's not within Rick Snyder's purview and he didn't owe a specific duty to the people of Flint. Boy, that is some real legal gymnastics, if you ask me. Secondly, I don't know, a multi-millionaire white dude saying, yeah, I didn't really owe any specific duty to this, this city of poor black people, poor brown people, poor white people. I didn't have a duty to them. I was just the governor. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine using that as a legal defense, that I don't owe that city, I didn't owe any specific duty to Flint? nor did Governor Snyder have any duties owed specifically to Flint. But then, neglecting a city is not a crime. Well, I will say to Mr. Brian Lennon, who's Snyder's lawyer, and my follow-up story that I'm doing with Jen, you might be in it, sir, Mr. Lennon. Let me ask you a question. So this whole neglecting a city is not a crime. First of all, my reporting shows Governor Snyder did a whole lot more than neglect Flint. Our reporting indicates he actively covered up a deadly water disease that was spreading through Flint's water, actively covered up for as long as a year and a half. A year and a half. That's not neglect of duty. That is involuntary manslaughter. That is what the original investigation was going towards. So this is not neglect of duty. But putting that aside, when he says neglect of duty is not a crime, actually in the Michigan Penal Code, it is a crime, neglecting your duty. And Mr. Lennon should know, and this is about more than Flint, because if they get away with this shit, imagine what your governor and mayor can get away with. As a public official, whether it's a governor, a mayor, any executive, as part of most states' constitution, part of the law, part of the constitution of each state is you have a public duty when it comes to health and security. You have a public duty to act if you have knowledge of potentially something deadly that could kill your people. It's law. In Michigan, there are laws that the health department and the governor had a public duty to act. And, you know, a lot of people, I think Flint is so long ago, we're talking 2014, 2015, that this is not as, it's not as fresh to them. It's not as, I don't want to say not important, but just not as, you know, when time passes, we lose our fire for something. But can you just imagine for a second if this was 2020 and President Trump had, you know, coronavirus is airborne, right? So let's just alternative history here. Coronavirus started in the United States, not in China or anywhere else, right? Can you imagine if it came out that Trump knew that there was this airborne disease in the United States? It had not traveled anywhere else. And he, his chief of staff, his health director, bottled it up and hid it from the public for months as people were getting sick and dying. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine the justified, by the way, wall-to-wall coverage on CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, Reuters, Daily Beast, you name it, here? Could you imagine the wall-to-wall coverage? Could you imagine the potential criminal charges that would come against Trump and anyone else involved with not notifying the public? Well, that's what we're talking about. In this case, it's the water. It's not an airborne, you know, it's not an airborne viral virus from another country. But this is what we're talking about here. The Michigan media is out to lunch. It's been out to lunch. They don't challenge any of this. They don't challenge the fact that the attorney general just charged the governor with what it was described to me by Flint residents, a parking ticket for poisoning an entire city. A misdemeanor. A misdemeanor. And now, the multimillionaire governor and his high-priced attorney, with a straight face, are saying that it's not a crime to neglect a city. It's not a crime. You know, he didn't have any special duty to this city. He was just a governor. It's not like Flint is part of Michigan. And, you know, I hear practically nothing. I mean, I'm going to cover it. Because to me, and I've always said this, it's not just about the city of Flint, Michigan. This is about, do we live in a country or do we live in a corporation masquerading as a country? Do we live in a country that if the government, whether intentionally or unintentionally, poisons its citizens, they're going to leave them to die? Because they've been doing this to Native Americans for hundreds of years. They've been doing this to black and brown people, building their neighborhoods on top of environmental wastelands and environmental toxins. But in this case, you literally have them acutely, this was an acute situation over a year and a half, poisoned an entire community. They did nothing to stop it when they knew it was going on. They knew children were drinking this lead. They knew children, adults were drinking bacteria-tainted water. And they did nothing. And you're telling me it's a misdemeanor? You're telling me, oh, he didn't have a special duty to Flint. You're telling me, oh, it's not a, as the governor, it's not a duty if you neglect an ongoing, raging water crisis, which, by the way, he wasn't neglecting. We've shown he was actively trying to cover it up. I mean, this is blasphemy. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.